She remembers the exact thing you said on your third date, the offhand comment you made about her friend 6 months ago, the promise you half made on a Tuesday night when you were barely paying attention, and she didn't write any of it down. You forgot it the moment it left your mouth. She never will. Most people call this selective memory. Some call it holding grudges. A few call it manipulative. But neuroscientists, attachment researchers, and relationship psychologists call it something else entirely. And once you understand what's actually happening inside her brain when she stores every word you've ever said, you won't see it as a flaw anymore. You'll see it for what it really is. 1. The obvious theory is wrong. The most common explanation is simple. Women are more emotional, so they remember emotional things more vividly. It sounds reasonable. There's even some surface-level science that seems to support it. But here's the problem with that theory. It doesn't explain why she remembers the specific words, not just the feeling, not just the event, the exact sentence, the exact tone, the exact pause before you said it. That level of encoding isn't emotion, that's something else entirely. In 2002, a research team at Stanford University, led by psychologist Cahill, published findings that reframed the entire field of memory and emotion. Using PET scans to measure brain activity, they found that when emotional events are experienced, the amygdala, the brain's threat and emotion processing center, activates in a highly gender-differentiated way. In men, the right amygdala lights up. It encodes the broad outline, the gist, the emotional temperature of what happened. In women, the left amygdala activates, and the left amygdala is wired directly to language processing, to detail encoding, to the parts of the brain that lock in specifics. She doesn't just remember that the conversation happened, her brain archived the transcript. This isn't a personality difference, it's a neurological architecture. 2. You are not just a person to her nervous system, you are a threat variable. Here's where it gets deeper, and this is the part most people never hear. When a woman bonds with someone romantically, her brain doesn't just categorize that person as safe. It begins running a continuous background process, a kind of emotional security scan that monitors everything that person says and does for signals about the future. Evolutionary psychologists call this mate value monitoring, and it operates almost entirely below conscious awareness. Think about what that means. When you said something careless 6 months ago, her conscious mind heard a comment, but her nervous system heard data. It tagged it, filed it, and stored it next to every other piece of information she's gathered about who you are and whether you're someone she can trust completely. Researchers at the University of Texas at Austin found that women in romantic relationships show significantly higher activation in the hippocampus, the brain's primary memory consolidation center, during interpersonal conflict than men do, not during physical threat, during relationship threat. A word said wrong registers in her brain with the same neurological urgency as a warning signal. That's not irrationality. That's a nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, protecting her from the most consequential risk a human can take, trusting someone completely. 3. The older the memory, the more it means. There's a study that almost never gets mentioned outside of academic psychology journals, and it changes everything about how you understand this. In 2010, researchers at the University of California at Berkeley published findings on what they called relationship-relevant memory consolidation. What they found was this: in securely attached individuals, emotional memories related to their partner don't fade the way other memories do. They consolidate. They become more stable over time, not less. The brain essentially treats them as high-priority files, memories too important to allow normal decay. In men, relationship memories follow the standard forgetting curve. Details blur, timelines compress, the emotional charge softens. In women with strong attachment bonds, the opposite happens. Certain memories, particularly ones involving trust, vulnerability, or perceived inconsistency, become more crystallized with time, not less. This is why she can recall the exact words from a fight 3 years ago with more clarity than you remember last week. Her brain didn't just store that memory, it reinforced it, because somewhere in her nervous system, it was flagged as something that mattered about your reliability as a partner. She's not holding it against you on purpose. Her brain decided it was too important to let go. 4. What she's actually doing when she brings it back up. Most men experience this as an attack. She brings up something old and it feels like a trap, like she's been saving ammunition. But attachment researchers see it completely differently. Dr. John Gottman, who spent over 40 decades studying couples at the University of Washington, found that when a partner surfaces an old memory during conflict, they are almost never doing it to win an argument. They're doing it to be understood. Gottman's research showed that unresolved emotional memories don't get filed away and forgotten. They get re-triggered every time a similar pattern appears in the present. The old memory surfaces not as a weapon, but as evidence. Her nervous system is saying, "This has happened before. I need you to see the pattern." What looks like bringing up the past is actually her trying to show you a map of what makes her feel unsafe. And she's hoping, even if she can't articulate it, that this time you'll look at the map instead of arguing about whether the map exists. 5. When she stops bringing things up, that's when you should worry. Earlier, I told you she stores everything. Here's the part most people never consider. What happens when she goes quiet? When a woman who used to voice things, who used to bring up memories, who used to surface the moments that hurt her, suddenly stops, that is not peace. Relationship researchers call this stonewalling withdrawal, but in women with high emotional intelligence, it often signals something more specific. She's stopped believing the conversation will matter. Research from the Gottman Institute found that in relationships heading towards breakdown, women typically stop initiating difficult emotional conversations an average of 6 months before the relationship ends, not because they've forgiven and forgotten, because they've concluded, somewhere beneath conscious thought, that being understood by this person is no longer possible. The memories are still there, she just stopped sharing them. So if she used to tell you when something bothered her and now she doesn't, don't mistake the silence for resolution. It might be the most important thing she's ever communicated to you, and she didn't say a single word. The real reason she remembers everything you said. It was never about keeping score. It was never about winning arguments or cataloging your failures. Her brain remembers your words because to her nervous system, your words were never small. Every promise was data. Every careless comment was information. Every moment of tenderness was filed somewhere permanent because she needed it to be real. She remembers everything you said because at some point she decided you were worth remembering everything for. The question was never why she holds on to your words. The question is whether you've given her enough of the right ones. If this changed how you understand the person you love, subscribe to this channel and drop a comment below.